All right, everybody. Before we dive into today's episode, we're brought to you by a few fantastic brands that sponsor this show. The first one is Routine. Now, this one has been a sponsor for a long time. If you haven't tried it yet, I don't know what you're doing because I've been talking about them for years. But ultimately, what was Routine designed to do? Well, when we sleep, we lose between a pound and a half of water, mostly just from sweating, something I learned when I first met these guys. Each packet of Routine comes with half an organic lemon, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, Himalayan sea salt, all 6 essential electrolytes, and no sugar. I always like to say it's really just 3 ingredients. It's lemons, it's apple cider vinegar, it's Himalayan sea salt. I dump that into a glass of water first thing in the morning, rehydrate myself. The days I have it versus the days I don't, phenomenal on the days I do. I genuinely, it's one of those products where you feel it immediately. You know when you don't have it. Trusted ingredients, made convenient. These guys, they're the bomb. I love working with them. I've loved supporting them over the years. Give them a shot if you haven't already. Go to yourroutine.com. You can use code ShaneWhite30 at checkout for 30% off your first order. They're also available on Amazon. You can go there, get on subscription. That's what I would do. Get a 30-pack, throw it on subscribe and save, get it once a month. If you like to have more than one a day, or if you share it with folks in your house, you're probably going to need it more than once a month, or get 2 bags a month. Both of those are great options. You can save up to 15% every month on Amazon with Subscribe and Save. And all right, we actually have a new sponsor on the show. Couldn't be more excited. Love these guys. They are also out of Chicago. I have worked with them, supported them, actually invested in them. So if you can't tell, I love these guys. You do now. It's called Haywell. And for any of you who know me, you know I'm into energy drinks. I'm into caffeine, sometimes to my detriment. And Haywell has honestly been a great alternative, not just caffeine or caffeinated product, but it's been a product that I'm able to use at nighttime too, because they have a calming line as well. But really, Haywell, I'll read this to you guys. Modern life can be hard, but your wellness shouldn't have to be. Being well doesn't mean being perfect. Getting fit doesn't mean you have to fit into a mold. We need a reminder that little more joyful steps can add up to something truly meaningful. We can do hard things, but that doesn't mean we always need to be so hardcore. Wellness is meant to be enjoyed, not endured. They created Haywell to be a simple invitation to a new movement for modern wellness where all are welcome, where small steps can add up to something big, where you get more high fives and less side eyes, where you have more fun and less frustration, where flavor and function are equally famous. Wellness doesn't come in a can, but we can help. They've created a line of low-calorie, functional beverages that taste delicious and help you be a little more well in every mood and moment. They're equally proud of creating a more welcoming, realistic, and joyful flavor of wellness culture where more people feel seen, supported, and inspired to embrace a wellness journey that truly feels better for you from the beginning. Haywell is here for you from rise and shine to relax and unwind. Ashley and Britt, like I said, the co-founders of Haywell, I've worked with them for a while now, and just they're just unbelievable people. If you guys want to try their products, go to the link in the bio. As I'm recording this, I don't have a discount code, but I'm sure we can get one for you guys. So take a look at the link in the bio. You can go to haywell.com. You can also go to Amazon. They're on Amazon, and it's a great place to get it. They're also available in Target. You can find them in Foxtrot. You can find them in a lot of different places now. They're doing a great job of getting distribution. But I would say the 2 easiest places, livinghaywell.com. If you just Google Haywell, you'll find that pretty quickly. And then also Amazon. All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. Here's today's show. All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shane White Show. I'm pumped today to have Wade Oakley on the show. And for everyone who, not a lot of you watch, but for people who are potentially watching, we're just audio today. I had some crazy technical difficulties, which Wade and me were laughing about because he literally joked about, did you have something with Claudebot? You know, you have AI screw up your computer. And I literally this weekend spent half my weekend building out some crazy AI software on my computer, and I'm pretty sure I fried my computer. So it was a good joke because it's exactly what I did. So as we get into it, Wade, would you mind just giving, I have a cool little intro I'll say about you, but before I do that, would love for you to just give your 2 cents on if someone asked you like, okay, Wade, who are you and what do you do? How would you explain yourself to everybody?
Oh man. Well, now I'm curious what your intro is going to be, of course, but I've enjoyed how I don't have that answer changes so much lately that I don't have like a pithy little elevator. Here's who I am and what I do. But I've enjoyed the space in that to kind of keep changing and evolving. I'm almost like an ex-corporate. I used to work at McKinsey, Impossible Foods, different startups, biotech, early stage biotech work. Ex-corporate turned yoga teacher is one version of the story. But it's not really the whole story because kind of the whole time I've taught some yoga, I've practiced yoga the entire time. And then I'm not really ex-corporate either. I still do some work in the biotech world. But a lot of what I do is in the strength training and yoga space. I travel and teach and run workshops and retreats, and do some online coaching and training, and a lot of personal exploration. So that's kind of how I spend most of my days if I'm not in Charlottesville walking my dog or hanging out with my wife. Basically, that's the nutshell.
Love it, man. Yeah, I mean, for everyone's background, I met Wade when I ran out to SF to train with Marcus, and you were there, and we got to train together, and we saw each other for a couple days, and it was funny because when Marcus said, "Oh, my buddy Wade is going to come train with all of us today," and he made a comment that like, "Oh yeah, he's like this wild like yoga guy." That's how you got introed to me, and I was like, "Wild yoga guy," and I honestly I was expecting I was expecting to walk in as like a hippie like yoga San Francisco. That was like the image I had in my head.
Hmm.
And then Wade walks in and he's fucking jacked. Dude comes in and like plows out a whole workout and competes with Marcus, and the rest of us are standing there like, wait a minute, this guy does yoga? I didn't know yoga guys were strong. So that was the funny thing. And then you and I have just been talking and chatting while we were both there and afterwards. And I was like, you're one of those people that I just want to get on the podcast. Just genuinely so curious about your life, and I think your story is so cool. And after I left, I remember on the flight home, I was like, I got to find Wade on Instagram. And I looked you up and I was like, holy shit, this guy is, you're, first of all, just like the movements that you post about and do is wild. And it also started to open my mind because obviously I'd followed you since then. That was what, August of last year. So it's been a while. I'm like, wow, how immobile I have become as I've continue to strength train because I'm like these movements you do every time you post something. I'm like, how on earth is he doing this? So anyway, that's the background. I've always been curious about yoga. I've always wanted to try it. I've never done it beyond, and I think I said this to you, I've never done anything besides like YouTube version of following somebody. So yeah, man, I just thought it was such a cool opportunity to sit down and talk to you about, not only your story, but how you got so into this. So maybe let's start there. Like, when did you get into yoga? Like, when was that? Like, when's the first time you kind of got a taste of it?
So it's funny because now I'm back in Charlottesville. I went to University of Virginia, and started practicing in 2012, I think it was. I was first year at the university here, and there was a free yoga class, and I only went because I had hurt my shoulder in the gym. So somewhat like ironic because the whole story, you know, the story for me is like one great merging of like how do I do both of these kind of practices, and then that turns into like, oh, they're actually super helpful to each other, but you got to have a long lens. And so, I was like, and this is probably this 18-year-old Wade. Like, I hurt my shoulder doing some sort of overhead press or like a small labrum tear, and I, didn't know enough to like train around that. So I was like, oh, I guess I can't go to the gym. Let me go to this yoga class. Because my roommate found it and it was free, and you're, beginning of college, you're like, maybe there'll be some girls there, maybe like, whatever.
Sure.
It was
Yeah. Yeah.
very, very low, no grand spiritual aspirations or anything like that. And just got hooked, day over day. Very, very, very skilled, experienced teacher who still teaches in Charlottesville. I mean, I literally practiced with this guy this morning.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so in between, I lived in San Francisco for almost a decade and kind of been all over. But it's funny because now we're back here in Charlottesville. But yeah, stumbled in, and then more yoga led to less time in the gym. Eventually, no time in the gym, and then bouncing around different injuries, this and that. Eventually, the gym kind of came back into my life. Of course, I found Marcus, which Marcus has a tendency, I think, to help things escalate a fair
Yeah,
bit.
for
So
sure.
it was less casual gym and more like, whoa, hold on, and I really liked where he was coming from and how incorporated mobility stuff is. And then I found like, you know, I think the first time I trained with him and we were doing some like Cossack squats and I just had never done them before.
Yeah,
But I had this
sure.
idea of like, I'm so flexible. Of course I can do that. And he's like in, super, super strong range, deep Cossack squats with a heavy kettlebell. And I like, was like, I'll just do that. And then no chance because I had no strength in the end range. And so little things like that kind of have gotten me hooked on, wait a second, controlling that is completely different than like being flexible. So it's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like mobility focus. And, there's a ton of that on the internet and stuff. And my lens has been one of like, well, I come from a very that yoga practice, like so Ashtanga yoga is the type of yoga that I practice, and it's pretty traditional on the in the spectrum of yogas, I would say. Excuse me. And I mean, I've been to India 9 times now
Oh wow.
since 2014 or so. So I just like went really deep in this practice. And my teacher's teacher was in India, and he was kind of like, all right, if you want to keep going in this, you got to go there. So it's not a very casual thing. So it went really deep, but then like the interest in movement has been there throughout. So the long way of answering how I got into this, but the thread's been there. I think it's funny that I hurt myself in the gym and then went to yoga. And then not exactly, it's oversimplified to say like I hurt myself in yoga and so went to the gym, but there is some truth to I think both of those. And, the most pain-free and happiest my body's ever felt has been when I found like a nice way to do both basically.
Okay, got it. Yeah, I was gonna say you explained it to me in person when we were out with Marcus that they think they kind of feed each other, which I thought was really interesting because I think I agree with you. Like Marcus was kind of the first person who convinced me that you should be working on mobility while you're lifting, and it doesn't need to be two separate complete practices. But then it also made sense to me when you and I started talking how I could see just by like that was the first time I had ever trained with Marcus, so it was eye opening to me the caliber of athlete I knew he was competing in the CrossFit Games and the level of CrossFit he had done, and then seeing him do the same movements that I'm trying to do now under his programming. Just seeing like the level of I guess it would be considered mobility or just the depth he can get into positions with such strength that I realized like, oh wow, like you kind of have to be like to be able to move some of these weights. Like one of the things that can really unlock that I could tell is just having better mobility in general. Like at some point you're going to hit a like that's probably where I've been too. It's like I know I can't do a lot of really good like bendy movements for lack of better words.
Hmm.
And I've always wondered, I'm like, I wonder if that kind of cripples the ceiling that I can hit. And then you and I talked about it, and it made me think, like, wow, that's really interesting because they do seem like they'd be synergistic. And then it also, if you think about longevity, which is something I've become more and more obsessed with, it makes a ton of sense. Like at the end of the day, as I see some of my parents and in-laws aging, becoming less mobile and just like not being able to move their limbs the same way they could even a decade ago. It's really
Hmm.
eye-opening. You're like, man, that you think at the end of the day, like, great, lifting weights, building muscle is important, but if you're not mobile, none of it really matters. So it almost feels like that's actually like a really healthy base for you to have. And it's honestly made me rethink, like, I should probably add some form of this into my life. I think it has probably you probably don't you might realize it, but to me it seems like it has such a big impact long term that I probably didn't really understand until I started paying attention to some of your stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. And it's like, I feel like I fall into the same trap of like, if I'm running a cycle in a program and like, I want the weights to go up, like that's the number one metric.
Of
But
course, yeah,
like we know there's a lot of ways to progressively overload. And one of them is with range, obviously. But it's not as like celebrated, you're not like it's not like my, 2 plate squat or my 3 plate squat or whatever. It's like you can't say like, oh, I got another inch of depth, but like that's huge. And you also can get more out of the same motions, the same weights, with more range.
sure, oh
So,
yeah,
like I've loved these, like been kind of figured out my like deficit Romanian deadlift setup.
mm,
Um, and I love it because I got kind of sick of like, I'm always doing like kind of an evaluation of risk reward of whatever training thing because I value freedom of movement. And I also like I have the yoga practice is even as a physical practice. Like you see the posting stuff on Instagram and like we're doing all these different asanas and stuff like that. But it's also like a moving meditation of sorts. I'm following a set sequence every day. There's not, I know when to breathe, how to breathe. There's an aspiration to breathe evenly, and then you're kind of putting yourself in your body in more and more, on one hand, different difficult postures on looked at differently. It's almost like you're purposely like stressing out your nervous system by making your body make a certain shape, and
Uh-huh.
then all you're trying to do is breathe evenly. And so that's like one kind of interpretation of what the practice is. The idea being that, of course, like the yoga mat is a simulation for the real world, where you get to like play in your little sandbox and like cause stress and then train yourself to like react to that calmly and breathe evenly. And then it's like, not rocket science. Like, can you do that in the real world? Like off the mat, if something unexpected happens, or, you're about to go speak before a crowd, or fill in the blank. Like, a lot of benefits and structure that come. This is, a certain lens, and I would say a relatively simple lens on. There's a lot of answers to like what yoga is. But anyways, on the kind of risk reward spectrum, it's like I don't want to just constantly. I'm not trying to like one rep max my deadlift
Sure.
indefinitely because that's
Yeah.
like the likelihood of injury goes up, and injury matters a lot because I'm doing this yoga thing every day,
Right.
and that's kind of my practice. So it's finding like a sweet spot. So, I can explore with lighter weights that are can still be, we can still get to RPE 10. Um, but I can do different things and work on like, range of motion as my kind of main way of progressing. And it's just a bit, I don't know, it's expansive. I think it helps us like keep a bit of a better lens that orients you towards safety and makes what you're doing in the gym or wherever more sustainable. And I'm with you on the like longevity front. Like that's kind of the whole point for unless you're like a professional athlete or it's just like your absolute passion and you like setting wild goals and achieving them. And I like a little bit of that, but I also, one of my wild goals is to practice every day for as long as I can.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
it
a good
doesn't
one.
doesn't behoove me to like wreck my body on a regular basis. Even though a lot of people like think that's what I'm doing, and it's like, no, no, this is like on a base of many, many years of, this is going on 13, 14 years of doing yoga basically every day for an hour, 90 minutes, sometimes 2 hours.
Wow.
So
I showed my wife one of your videos you posted recently, and I said, I literally don't understand how he can do this. Like, I'll add a link to your Instagram in the show notes. But for everyone listening, I mean, Wade gets in these like legitimately, you're a pretzel is the best way I can describe it. I mean, it's insane. I'm like, I did not. And again, I was with you in the gym, and you were lifting heavy ass weights and moving with real intensity. So it's really cool to see how that combination has evolved for you. Would you say, do you think doing yoga, obviously it's helped with mobility and like the depth concept. Do you think it's made you stronger in the gym?
like there's been so many phases of this, and I'm probably a solid 30 or more pounds heavier than I was in my like earlier yoga days. So there have been phases of yoga practice where it's like, oh, you get to a certain point in this series, and it's like, okay, now there's a bunch of arm balances, and like you will put on a ton of strength. You're doing a lot of pressing work in those windows, but eventually your body adapts and there's like a plateauing effect. Like it's not like the gym. It can be hard to progressively overload, I would say. So to a point, there's a lot of strength building. Like for me, I mean, I came in and I was like absolute Gumby. Like I was just very flexible and not very strong at all when I came to the yoga practice. I probably hurt my shoulder in the gym long ago from like not hypermobility, but trending that direction, not being able to support the range of motion I did have. So a lot of it for me, a lot of the yoga practice was strengthening, but I had a tendency towards flexibility in a way that like I brought deadlifting back into my life to prevent sort of my like hip flexors and front of body from getting too open. I wanted to be able to like support and, build core strength and kind of in the wraparound way on both sides. Um, anterior and posterior chains and get all of that stuff solid so that I could work from that basis rather than just going, going deeper, deeper, deeper or something like that on the yoga front. So it has varied at different phases. I think this particular practice, Ashtanga practice, is somewhat unique in that it's not a like, what do you feel like doing today? But like it will, in its sequential nature and the way it's taught, like it forces you, you're gonna find what you're bad at pretty quickly. And you'll basically be stuck there until you deal with it, is the simple version.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not like a rock up to class on Thursday morning and be like, today I want to do hip openers. It's like no, you're doing the thing that's kind of prescribed, which has pros and cons in different yoga systems and all of that, but it will point you towards the things you need to work on. And I mean, for me, that's like what I came to learn over many, many years was that to support the way my body is in the long run, I needed to integrate more strength training.
Yeah.
Um, and at first, that might be really hard because you're like, whoa, I'm used to not being sore. I'm used to not like going in after heavy leg day. Like things might not feel super fun. Your legs might
Right.
feel a little heavy if you're jumping around, but eventually, it kind of like it has ended up like enhancing the practice. I have a lot more like body awareness, and then I learned how to do a Cossack squat, and then I have way better control of like my adductors and stuff because it's actually strong, and I know how to fire things, so to speak, and that ends up being a much safer way to practice and train. So again, a lot of my things come back to like injury avoidance and safety, but
Yeah.
from a lens of like, but we're still gonna like work really hard. Like it's not a calm thing on the mat, nor is it a calm thing in the gym. Like yeah, we were training together. You know what it's
Yeah.
like.
Oh yeah.
I
No
don't
joke.
I don't
It's
have
not a
a
joke.
an
I
off
laughed.
an off switch.
I like no, you don't. I would laughed. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I think one of the things when I came back, I had like I wrote some stuff down in my notebook. I always try to like write stuff down from big things I do. One of the things I laughed at was we were doing weighted dips, and I was pumped because it was the first time I've ever done it with a 45-pound plate. Which for me and the guys I was with, like I felt like we were kind of going back and forth, and that was where we got up to. And I look over, and you and Marcus are fucking doing two of them, and I'm like, what on earth? Like. Again, just like you two were just going at it. I actually laughed, and this is something I was going to ask you. I know you're a fellow whoop guy, and I laughed. I had like that year in review that popped up, and the
Uh-huh.
two highest strain, or the two highest strain days I had in 2025 were the 2 days I was out there with Marcus and you guys. So
Nice. Nice.
it
I
was
love
too
that because
funny.
it's like, yeah, you're like, okay, how do I set up? I look at that and I hear that and I'm like, okay, how do I set up more days like that?
For
Because like
sure.
I never would be putting, I didn't like dream up in my silo like, oh, let me just like throw some more weight on these dips. I had to like see someone doing it
Right, right.
and be pushed. And this is like Marcus training partners over the years, like stuff that I would have even considered. And then in like, then you're like, well, I'm coming out of a phase. Actually, I don't know if it was before or after that, but I got into like trying to do this, one rep max dip stuff, and you just
Oh
got a
yeah.
crazy amount of weight on there, and you can handle it. And it's like kind of a pain to set it up, and I don't know if it's worth it. This like tests the like risk reward,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
it's kind of fun to be like, hey, I've got a bunch of weight. Like those feel good. I don't know. Marcus was a big lever in the like, don't be afraid to like, pay attention to like use the structure, use the tempo, use the RPE stuff, and you find that like it's really good for building strength. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that like I can do that, and I certainly would not have imagined it not that long ago. At the same time, I'm also like, yeah, and my squat sucks and my bench is weak and all this.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so
Whatever. But like
yeah,
also, I mean, I do agree though. There's something about I mean, I typically train by myself in my like I have a gym in my basement, and it's been helpful sending the videos to Marcus. 'Cause that's what the way we train together. It's just an accountability thing, and he'll call me out on my bullshit when he knows I'm not lifting heavy enough at this point, which is great. It's what I need. And but you're right. Like being in the gym, there is something else. There is something about. I mean, I think that's kind of why CrossFit became so popular back in the day. It was like a competition live every day with the people you're with. I do think there's something to be said about that. It'll get you to throw on more, just a little bit more weight, and you do that enough days across a year, it probably has pretty profound impacts, I would assume.
Yeah, you find out what you're capable of, and then your like standards just kind of adjust accordingly, at least
Yeah,
in my
exactly. Like
experience.
the base, like the weight that you would grab just to get started changes, right? Like
Yeah.
I realized that like what he was warming up with and what you were warming up with. I'm like, oh shit, I've been warming up with the same light ass weight for ever. Like I just normally, like it was one of those weird things where I realized like, oh, I typically grab a 25 when you and Marcus are grabbing a 45 every time to warm up. That kind of little thing I was picking up on where I'm like, oh yeah, you could just do the same thing for so long if you don't have people to push you. Uh,
Yeah.
so interesting. Are you
I'm laughing because I'm like thinking about like yeah, and I probably picked him at 45 because I thought Marcus was doing a working set and he was warming up and I'm like, "Oh shit, I got
right?
stuck here."
That's so true. That's so true. Do you so speaking of longevity and the tools that we talk about, are you still wearing the whoop? Do you still think it's beneficial, all the longevity stuff they've rolled out with, or do you feel like it's kind
Yeah.
of noise?
I mean, I feel like I phase I always wear it. I phase pretty hard on like what I pay attention to. It's been really helpful for me with reinforcing like habits around sleep and then balancing travel a lot. And a lot of like crossing time zones and stuff like that to have a bit of a reality check. Because kind of my default mode, I feel like I will err on the side of, fly around the world and then be like, why was my workout not exactly as I planned it to be? And it's like, well, come on, dude.
Mm, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so like I need the data helps me sometimes kind of reset. I basically, I often will go into a mode where I'll like if it's not looking great, I'll ignore it, and if it's looking good, that's kind of a backstop to like if I don't feel good, I'll be like, well, Whoop says I'm green, so you better go for it.
I mean, that's a really good way to handle it. That's something me and Marcus, funny enough, like if he listens to this, he'll die laughing because I'm the weirdest fucking person that's obsessed with my data in a probably an unhealthy way. But I do think like what you just said is exactly how you should think of it when it comes to longevity is like let it push you, don't let it stop you most of the time. Like I think if you're, super run down and it's on and on and on, maybe. But I do think that's probably the biggest downside I've seen with the tools is like I wake up fine, but then I look and I'm like, wait, I'm red today. Like that kind of shit gets to me sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, I don't love when it does that, but at the same time, it's data, and I always like to tell people who say that to me, I'm like, yeah, but it is your data, so do it with it as you please, but it's just data. It has it has no opinions to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't really argue with it. You might be able to tweak like, no, I really went to sleep at this time. You missed 5 minutes, and it's like it's not gonna move the needle on
You're like, you still
your
slept
whatever.
5 hours, buddy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
that's
I
very
mean,
true.
but yeah, I feel like if you're willing to make changes, it's really good.
Yeah, it
If
was.
you let it be kind of background noise, I think it can be a bit tough. But especially
Yeah,
like changing places, changing training structures. I've been on a I got a Peloton recently. I've been on a bit of a kick of like, hey, I think a missing piece for me is just like a solid aerobic base, and I think it would actually kind of help practice, and I think it would help training too, maybe a little recovery between sets. And like, people say it's good, and I've heard all the books and ideas over the years of around like what the benefits of racking up some zone 2 hours are. But I
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
ignored them because I'm like, I got a lot of physical activity and I'm tired of doing stuff. But it's like, if I can hop on the bike and add that. But I also want to see like what effect is that having? Like, is it do I have to recover from it in a way that's detracting from these other activities? Because that I need data. Like, I don't know. I need some data to
Make a
kind of
decision kind of
reinforce.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, I think it's all about how you use it. I'm a big there's a it's funny, there's a small feature in Whoop that I actually will use time to time where you can just turn off the recovery and sleep metric right away on the front screen. I don't know if you've
Oh,
ever done that before.
really?
Yeah, it's like in settings and like they don't make it very obvious, but you can get to it. I'll have to send it to you. I've actually done that before, and then it's like on Sundays, I'll unhide it and look at the week. So you still see strain, you still see things like steps, because like Marcus has me track steps. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, that way it doesn't really get in my head. And I know like I need,
Mhm.
get in bed at the same time, get up at the same time. Like I kind of know the building blocks that I need to follow, but it doesn't ever like get in the way. And then I can look back at I can undo it on Sunday or whatever when I'm looking at my next week and be like, oh, how did I do this week? Oh, I had, it's kind of interesting like looking backwards at it. Um, when I feel like I'm like kind of too into the data, I'll do that sometimes if I feel like
That's a
it's getting in the
good
way.
good to know that that exists because also like, I think about like a travel setup where I'm like, in no world is this
Yes.
actually like helping me. Like I know what to do and I'm going to do my best, but I also like know I need to cut myself some slack
Yeah,
and
of
that,
course.
it's not going to be the same program. It's going to be a new gym and you just need to get in like a few good sets and that's going to get the job done.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
exactly.
or like, a prac for me that like on the yoga front, that looks like, there's different series that I do. And it's like after travel, like your weekly rhythm is going to be kind of mixed up on purpose. As long as there's a thing to return to.
Right.
But yeah, I might have to mess
You
with that and
should.
just see
Yeah,
what
you
it's
should
like to
mess with it.
not have data for a week, but
I
know that it's
know.
not
It's
like,
it's funny. I'm like I'm in this weird zone where like kind of it's funny. Marcus has kind of been pushing me to be like, dude, just take the fucking whoop off. Like you need to get your steps, you need to get your sleep, you need to hit your
if yeah, it's
macros, you need
like
to lift really hard. Like you know what you need to do to live for you need to build
yeah,
muscle. Like that's what you need to do to be healthy for a long
yeah.
time. And then I like always get sucked back in because I'm like, oh, I don't think it's keeping me accountable enough without it. I don't know. It's one of those. It's a funny tool. I've worn mine since 2019, so I've had it for just a long ass time, and it almost feels like a weird like I'm missing like I'm gonna like detract somehow, which is probably not fair. That's not true.
No,
Um,
no, it's like it could probably set us free a little bit of just like you already know what to do and like
yeah,
when like recognizing when a tool stops,
being the
and
tool. I know. Once it taught
yeah,
me to
yeah.
not, I actually gave up alcohol because of it for the most part, and
Hmm.
then having a kid,
Hmm.
my first son, that was like the nail in the coffin for me. Um, yeah, I give it a lot of credit because of that. Because otherwise, I wouldn't have ever done that. So
I just like reinforcing that's like some of the things we already do. I don't drink now and I haven't for a long time, but I really was like because I didn't feel good. And once I got data that told me that I wasn't crazy for not feeling good, it was like, you slept like shit and it's really red.
yeah,
And you had like
yeah,
one
yeah,
drink.
right.
I was like, cool. So now I know that like this is poison to me and I don't need to listen to, 15 podcasts and read another book on like how alcohol works because like I don't that's not my battle to fight. Like it's just pretty clear and the signal's strong enough that it makes decisions easy.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but other
No,
things I'll still
I'm
fight
so
even though
with
I
you,
know.
man. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like I said, I'm a data nerd, and I'd be curious. Well, I know we're out of time, so maybe we will need a second one. But like, once they rolled out the blood testing feature, I don't. Have you done that yet?
I uploaded some old things and actually just did a function health panel,
Nice.
so I'm waiting on results there. But yeah, yeah, I might yeah, we could go down the data rabbit hole, I think, for
Yeah, because
sure.
that to me was like I when they announced that, and then I actually went and did one of their tests just to see how it worked,
Hmm.
and I was like, man, to me, the everything Whoop has been. Now you layer in blood, and then their AI model. I talk to it a lot, so it knows me really well, knows like what my training splits are, and that we have like a newborn and all this crazy stuff. Um, I'm like, I think this is where it comes full circle, where it starts to be like proactive. It starts to tell you like, hey, this is what I'm seeing in all of this data that you're not going to be able to just see on a dashboard, and we recommend you do this. That was cool. Like it actually recommended supplements for me, for example,
Okay. Okay.
to like get my APOB down and some of these other markers,
Yeah.
which I'm like,
Yeah.
that's pretty. Like if all of a sudden then I take the test 6 months later and now my APOB came down because of some of the stuff I changed, I'm like, that's pretty fucking nuts.
That's gonna be an interesting world because I feel like, and from whether it's Claudebot or Whoop or blood testing, like I'm looking at and my I say biotech, but a lot of my work has been in the very much in the mental health space. And if I look at all of these things, I'm like, okay, rapid technological advancement and all of this new data access and so on, but what I don't see are like better physical and mental health outcomes happening.
Yeah, yeah,
So like that's a big, those are massive bridges to cross, and like if we don't, I think it's scary to me if we don't address those fronts and we don't start to see some like population level change for all the
sure.
purported tools and information out there.
Yeah, it's a good call, man.
Um, so that's kind of where my head goes. But yeah, I also, I could that's on a good day, and on a bad day, maybe I'm just like down in the weeds of like, what is this like sub piece of my blood work, and is it optimal, or is it like, could it be better? It's like, okay, I think you're good.
Wait, I
Time to
actually
like go
think
do something good in the world.
I think this is a perfect end to tease people on. If you're down, I would love to do one again, especially when you get your function health
Yeah, yeah,
back
yeah.
because I think tying this into longevity and how yoga and training and blood work and all this stuff. I know you're really into this, and we both have been in the CPG world, and I think we could have a fun extra jam sesh if you're down.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, man.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, for everyone listening, like I said, we had a little. I had all the technical difficulties in the world on my side, so we started a little late. But Wade, thank you for coming on the show, man. It was fun just to catch up with you and hear a little more about how you got into it. I think one last thing before, because I do have to jump. For someone who's listening today and maybe this tweaked their interest and they're like, hey, I would love to try yoga. What's your recommendation on like just how to get started?
Oh man, at this point I would turn to the internet, and I say this like I have to give a lot of credit to Marcus here because, before I think I found like Knees Over Toes guy on Instagram.
Oh yeah.
And
Good.
that led me to Marcus back in the pandemic days. And I can look at how much like positive change has happened in my life through kind of these people, but through that. The steer in like my tradition of yoga is like find a qualified in-person teacher, but I'm like realistically like at scale, like if you just want to start, like there's so much benefit from like just you're breathing through your nose and you're learning Surya Namaskara A, and you've looked up intro to Ashtanga, and you find a good video from someone like Kino McGregor, or there's a lot of popular Ashtanga teachers out there that don't take much Googling to find. But that's my kind of like, it's quite a tool to have in the toolkit, just to have like a 5 or 10 minute, really good for your nervous system. And then like see if it strikes your fancy, and if you get a little hooked like I did, and then here we are. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I've been to India this many times, and it's
Sure. Yeah, man.
been a thread through my whole life. But it doesn't have to be. There's a lot of roads, and I think if they're leading us towards a good amount of movement and breath and awareness in life, and challenging ourselves safely, that's kind of what I end up doing on the yoga mat and in the gym in terms of what the actual aims are, so that hopefully I can do other stuff in the world well and with a little bit more grace and kindness and all of that good stuff.
Love that, man. It's beautiful. It's a good message. Well, thank you very much, Wade. Appreciate it again, man. Sorry for the technical difficulties, but thanks for coming on the show. And
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I'll circle back. We'll do a round 2 of this.
Cool. And I look forward to the next training session too.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, we really should. We'll chat offline. I would love to figure out a time that we could all do it again, because I had a blast.
Definitely
Cool,
got to get those big strain days in.
Yeah, I got to get 90.
They're coming.
I got to get big strain and 90 pounds on the dips. That's my goal.
Excellent.
All right, dude.
I love it.
Great to have you on, man.
All right.
All right.
Take care, Shane.
See you.